Springfest is happening now at Lowe's. Keep the spotlight on your yard with Stay Green Premium 2 cubic foot mulch, 5 bags for $10. Plus, when you want more help indoors, get up to 40% off select major appliances that help you supercharge your chores. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid to 4/22 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for details. Mulch offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii.
Chronic migraine, 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more, can make me feel like a spectator in my own life.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for those with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It's the #1 prescribed branded chronic migraine preventive treatment.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Why wait? Ask your doctor, visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com, or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. Today, I'm joined by Republican State Auditor Dave Boliek. The state auditor in the past has been a pretty low-profile member of the Council of State, the 10-member group of statewide elected officials. That includes the governor, attorney general, various commissioners. His job has been much higher profile over the past more than a year now, some because of a law that was passed before you took office that gives you more power to appoint Board of Elections. You campaigned on helping fix the DMV, which is something everybody who's listening to this has some sort of experience with. So I want to lead with that. But before we get into the DMV, right before we hit record, you told me that you didn't think in a million years you'd be jazzed about being state auditor. So let's talk about that. What's the jazzed factor of state auditor?
Well, you got me on that, Dawn, and I am very honored to be here. I feel like I've made it. I'm on Under the Dome.
There you go. You've arrived.
I do feel like I in a million years, I never would have thought I'd be jazzed to be state auditor. I think the office is has been a sleeping giant for years. I said that early on. I think there's a lot of power for the people. Sounds a little hokey to say that, but power for the people through the utilization of the Office of State Auditor in a way that shines a light on how their government works and how their tax dollars are spent. Because after all, it's not government's money, it's not state auditor's money in the state auditor's office, it's not the legislature's money, it's people's money. Government only runs through taxes or collected fees. Those are the only two ways that government raises funds. And so I think the challenge of making this office more relevant to individual North Carolinians is my mission and what we're trying to do here. So I'm excited about the opportunity and have been for the last now year and 2 months.
So you campaigned on the DMV. That was your first really big, significant project as auditor last year. There's been legislation, funding. It seems like problems are close to being fixed, or more or less. Where do you think things stand today? We're in your office recording this on February 23rd, 2026.
Yeah, so campaigned on auditing the DMV, and that was directly in response to that vision statement, which is how can we be relevant to everyday North Carolinians? If you're 15 years old or older, or you're the mom or dad of a 15-year-old plus, you're going to come in contact with the DMV. And wasn't a secret to people who traveled across the state of North Carolina that the DMV was not working to serve our citizens here in North Carolina in an efficient way. And the team here at the auditor's office really took that idea of auditing the DMV 600 plus page report with some solid recommendations. I think most importantly, by doing that audit, we showed what the state auditor's office can really do by making it a shared priority of government.
Where do you think it is now as far as what's left to be done to make people happier?
Well, I think that shared priority is on the front burner. The governor's office and Commissioner Tyne, there's emphasis there. The legislature has taken it up in legislation. I think there's more work to be done. I still think, and the team is committed to this idea that the DMV needs to be separated from DOT to be really effective. And the missions of DMV and the mission of DOT are not necessarily the same. Whereas DOT benefits from the fees collected north of $2.2 billion a year, that's fine, and that can certainly be calculated, and DOT could utilize those funds. But the DMV as an administrative body really needs more flexibility in order to be customer service minded.
Wouldn't that be making government bigger, though?
No, I think you just separate it off and makes it more flexible. I mean, DOT is such a mammoth organization that when you're head of DMV, you've got to run these decisions up several flagpoles in order to finally get something done. And then you go to the legislature on appropriation asks, and you're part of the DOT package. You're not your own entity. And I think DMV, because it is the most public-facing state agency in North Carolina, and certainly most customer service-oriented, needs that flexibility. And
but DOT opposes it, right?
Yeah, they do.
Right.
They do.
So
I'm not afraid to. I
Yeah.
mean, look, I think I'm all about civil discourse, and I don't dislike somebody just because they
Sure.
don't agree 100%. I don't expect everybody to agree 100%.
Well, let's see. So with the state agency, so Department of Adult Correction, that was in a couple budgets ago, I feel like. So that became its own agency, and Highway Patrol its own agency. So it's more government entity. So but that's been what the legislature wants to do. Do you think is it your pitch to them, or maybe when the short session comes, that there will be some sort of legislation to separate DMV out?
The really important point here is this wasn't Dave sitting around on a dartboard. This was driven by the team and data as part of our audit. So we leveraged the university system, both UNC Greensboro and North Carolina State University, as well as the team working and on the ground talking to license examiners who actually issue driver's licenses. And the team came up with the firm conclusion that it ought to be separated from DOT.
And how do you think that'll fit? Do you think that'll be more efficient for taxpayers? Will it end up costing more overall?
I think it'll be totally more efficient for taxpayers because DMV right now is totally receipt driven anyway. And so you give DMV more flexibility to make business decisions that provide better service. You're going to see the collection of fees increased as a business metric. And, in terms of separating it out, you're not really creating more government. You're just moving it out of DOT.
Wait, did you mention fees? Does that mean DMV fees would be increased?
No. That just means
you just said for business fees.
Well, it could be if you're able to serve more customers. Okay, you don't have to raise the fees to collect more fees. What you can do is do it more efficiently. If the 25 people who are standing in line at Avent Ferry can all get served in a day, you've collected fees from all of those 25 people, not just the 15 that actually got in the door.
Right, because that does kick that fee collection down the road. Yeah, not keep all those delayed appointments meant that there weren't fees too. So what? Do you think we'll see that in some sort of legislation?
I mean, look, that's our recommendation. Yeah. I don't know. It's up to the legislature. Okay. And I'm not one to tell the legislature what to do.
So they did give your office more power before. It was when former Governor Cooper was in office. It was the end of his term after the election. And I'm just telling for our listeners to know what the General Assembly did. We're sitting here in the Albemarle building, which is across the street from the legislative building. How often do you interact with them or certain lawmakers there, or your staffs maybe?
Yeah, well, I mean, I interact with people all over the state of North Carolina, including legislators. They are stakeholders. They do represent folks, and a lot of people call their local representative when they have problems and issues. So I try to be very available to all members of the legislature, regardless of what political party they're part of. And I've had legislative members of the General Assembly in my office, where we're sitting here today, from both parties who have brought questions that they have and issues that they have across state government. And I'm not keeping score on other members of the council of state. So I don't know how other members of the council of state necessarily react or act with the legislature, but I'm active in terms of availability.
You had mentioned at Council of State, I think last month or the month before, about opening a Charlotte office of the Auditor's office. What is that like? Who works there?
Yeah, so years and years ago, a couple decades ago, they had a Charlotte office. And we have regional offices already. We have one in Asheville, one in Kernersville, one in Greenville, and one in Wilmington. Decided that Charlotte was a place that we could utilize as a home base to recruit financial professionals. We did our Dave report on vacancies across state government, and one of the issues is getting top talent to come to work for the state of North Carolina, and we want to have the best and brightest here at the auditor's office. And one of the ways we can do that is get people who are financially motivated and inclined to come to work here, and Charlotte is a really good place to recruit. So we're going to have 10 to 12. We're already open as we speak here. We've got 7 or 8 professionals already working in Charlotte. It's going to allow us to work in the communities around Charlotte in terms of auditing. Under the PAVE Act, the legislature also required the state auditor's office to do oversight on the transportation authority for the Charlotte metro area. So we'll be able to do that work with that team there. But they're going to work statewide. It's really a recruitment issue more than anything.
What do you think other state agencies can learn from the auditor's office about things like that? You know, the state vacancy rate has, it's not as high as it was during COVID, but it's still overall it's like some worse than some agencies. What do you think kind of some of the answers are there for filling those vacancies? Or I know there's, proposals out there, and the House budget versus the Senate budget proposal as far as eliminating some vacant jobs. What do you think what have you seen that you all have been able to do that other agencies should be looking at as far as things like recruitment, retention, that sort of thing?
We've got now 205 total staff members here in the auditor's office, and we've added to our staff north of 80 additional new hires over the last year. One of the things we did is take an administrative position and create a full-time recruiter. So we have a recruiter who's full-time, and she did more than 70 recruiting fairs across the state of North Carolina at universities, community colleges, local groups that do employment fairs. That did a couple of things. One is it gets the state auditor's office out there in a public-facing way from the issue of, hey, maybe you don't want to work here today, but know that there are potential job opportunities at the auditor's office. And it has given us a pipeline of new recruits. I mean, when I came into the office, again, any member of the council of state free to do what they want with their office, and agency heads have similar sort of standards of how they operate the office. One of the things we've done, we walked in, we didn't have any interns. We keep a regular 8 to 10 interns here at the office because that's how I got hired in my first job. I think we even talked about it before we got on it, recording. I started as an intern and ended up as a full-time reporter. So
people who don't know about Auditor Boliek's history, he was, as you mentioned, we're sitting in his office in the Albemarle, and there's your 1990 North Carolina Press Association Award for the Thomasville Times. Is that right?
Thomasville Times. Yeah, and I started as an intern, so we got full interns. So I think internships are really important. I think having a recruiter and getting that message out there, and then I think bringing in temporary staff with the idea to move them to permanent is another thing that we do really well here at the auditor's office.
I want to talk about how you turned from Thomasville Times intern to running for state auditor. We need to take a quick break, and we'll come back. We'll have more with State Auditor Dave Boliek.
Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
So good, so good, so good.
New spring arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Rag & Bone, Marc Jacobs, Free People, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with State Auditor Dave Boliek. Before the break, we talked about the Auditor's Office and the legislature and DMV. We're going to talk more about you now and how you went from being a newspaper reporter to a lawyer to an elected official with a few stops here and there along the way.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. In Fayetteville, I was in Fayetteville for 26 years. My wife and I have 4 children. Really got involved in the community there, involved in my church, local activities, practiced law, ran a couple of different businesses as well. But getting involved on the board at UNC Chapel Hill really jumped me into more of the idea of potentially running statewide. And it came through the budget reform that myself and members of the board were able to do at UNC by taking 16 or so separate budgets that ran the University of North Carolina and working with the administration very closely and hiring a new CFO to consolidate to what's called an all-funds budget, and that model was ultimately rolled out across the UNC system. And that process really led me to the thought that maybe you could take that type of work to statewide level, and particularly the state auditor's office, and make a difference.
So how did you end up a trustee?
That's a good question. I got a phone call from a couple of people here in Raleigh, members of the Board of Governors, who said, look, we'd like to see if you'd be willing to serve your alma mater at Chapel Hill. Would you be willing to serve? And I said, well, let me think about it. And then got a couple more phone calls from some of the members of the Board of Governors. And I said, well, if you guys will have me, I'm glad to do it. And next thing I know, they put me in their meeting minutes and approved me to be a member. And so I just showed up.
So this was when you were practicing law in Fayetteville?
I was. It was 2019.
Why did you live in Fayetteville? How did you end up there?
We ended up there because my wife is a speech therapist. And when I was in law school at Campbell, getting my law degree, MBA degree there in Bowie's Creek, that was when law school was in Bowie's Creek. Mm-hmm. And we lived in Lillington. And my wife worked at Cape Fear Valley Medical Center there. And she ended up starting her own practice in speech therapy, and we just ended up matriculating to Fayetteville and made it our home.
Why did you want to be a lawyer?
Wanted to be a lawyer because I thought that I could make a lot more money than being a newspaper reporter.
What? That's
you want
accurate.
The honest answer.
That is accurate, yes.
And I did think, that being a newspaper reporter and the experience I had as a reporter really helped me in the practice of law, because it helped me with writing skills and also asking questions and trying to get to the right questions. And so it was a natural sort of flow.
So you know someone who is a leader in the legislature now from when you were becoming a lawyer.
Yeah.
So tell people about that.
Interesting story. So Minority Leader Robert Reeves, I've known Robert for more than 30 years. And he practiced law in Sanford, right next to Fayetteville. And when you before you get admitted to the bar as a member of the bar after you pass the bar exam, you have to go through an interview process. It's sort of a morality interview. They usually have a senior member of the bar and a junior member of the bar. And at that time, Representative Reeves was a junior member of the bar, and I was going to go through the bar in Harnett County. And so it was Harnett and Lee County were the same judicial district. And he actually did my morality interview for the bar. So interesting question. Interesting point. That was kind of fun.
So Minority Leader Reeves is a Democrat. You are also a Democrat. Now you're a Republican.
Yeah.
So I know you've talked in the past about the party switch, but it was something over time that you felt you were more in line with the Republican Party than the Democrats?
I think that's a fair way to say it. I said over time, my values, conservative values, really lead more toward what the Republican Party has represented and represents in terms of government, size of government, how government should work, and how we should look at government. And so really I had worked with a lot of Republican candidates across the state of North Carolina, even while a registered Democrat. And it really made more sense for me and for my family, for me to be aligned with the Republican Party. It's where I align my moral values as well.
I think the first time I met you in person I was covering a Trump rally. So that's a Trump rally is a big switch from being, I assume, being a Democrat for a while. What do you think about, I don't think
Trump rallies are fun. They're fun. I had a great time at Trump rallies.
I don't feel like people who are completely outside of politics realize that there are further edges of the political spectrum, and there are a lot of people that kind of are closer to the center. And the legislature, even though sometimes they say it's constituents, caucus, conscience, sometimes caucus is first, especially when it comes to, supermajorities or overriding vetoes and that sort of thing. So since you've been on both sides of this politically, how do you, I guess, kind of what do you take from that, where you've worked with people and been in the rooms where it's all Republicans in the room or all Democrats in the room, and knowing, what it's like and the middle ground that's there in a lot of ways? Well,
I mean, I think to a large degree on family issues, for example, a lot of North Carolinians are in agreement. We want a place where we can raise your family, where we can be safe, where we can have a job and have meaning in that job, not just have a job, have a career, something that you really get value from, serving other people, making a living while serving is really important. I think the experience of knowing a lot of people on both sides of the aisle, I think gives me a perspective of being able to balance in the office of state auditor what every North Carolinian expects. And that's the approach we took. I mean, I said to you early on that when we got here to the office, that the work here at the state auditor's office, we're going to leave political party label at the door when we're doing the auditor's work. And that's what we try to do every single day. And so I do think it gives me a perspective of, look, we represent every single North Carolinian, regardless of your political party, because it's your money. Money doesn't have a political designation. I pull a $20 bill out of your wallet. It doesn't say Republican $20 bill or Democrat $20 bill or unaffiliated $20 bill. It's a $20 bill, and we all pay it to the government. So in the state auditor's office, I think it does give me at least a unique perspective to be able to take a look at it from the point of view of people, not party.
Talking about money reminds me of the former state treasurer, Republican Dawn Vaughan, who would talk about spending. So I think I cover council of state meetings or people. It's a phrase where I've talked to state house reporters in different states, and I'll ask them about the council of state, and they're like, "What is that?" Not everyone uses that phrase, but it's this, as I mentioned at the top of the show, this 10-member group of elected state officials that there's it's kind of hard to explain. It's not like, that you're, some state agencies aren't led by someone, who's an elected official. Of course, cabinet agencies under Governor Stein, those aren't elected. Those are appointed. So let me ask you about Council of State and what your perspective of those meetings are with that group of 10 people who talk about property matters, essentially, and then it's sort of everybody goes around the table and talks about things going on in their particular area of state government, from the agriculture commissioner to the auditor to the attorney general, the governor. Just to get your perspective for people listening who are aware that there are these meetings, and what actually is accomplished by spending time with people you may not interact with otherwise.
It's kind of cool, right? Go to these meetings.
It is fun. I like Council of State. It's fun.
I sort of look at it as, it's certainly an honor to be there, and it's certainly a privilege that the people of North Carolina have given me to attend those meetings. But you're there with the leadership that's been elected statewide, and each member of the Council of State has sort of a unique lane and a unique role in managing government. And so I try to take the role of state auditor very seriously. And I think every other member of the Council of State takes their position very seriously. At least that's been my experience. I think it's unique. But with respect to, I'll give you a good example of where I think the entire Council of State can work even more closely with the governor, for example, and that's on disaster recovery. And we had a Council of State meeting. You were probably at that meeting when the governor actually went around the table and talked about how each member of the Council of State contributes to when we have a disaster and you have the initial response and then recovery. I think that the Council of State can be more involved and more dialed in as part of that process. And I think our team saw that when we did the audit of NCOR, for example. So that's an area where I think we can really leverage the Council of State moving forward. Other than that, it's a good opportunity once a month or so to get together in the same room, because you end up in one-off conversations with other members of the Council of State that lead to productive initiatives somewhere down the road.
There's two more things I want to touch on quickly. I know we're a little bit longer than usual under the dome,
I'm a talker,
listeners, but I think people want to hear this. It's worth it. So where you're talking about with the governor. So we're recording this in the Albemarle building, which is just fun to say, Albemarle. And this building is also the Department of Administration and the governor's office. So these three agencies or, departments are in the same building. I don't know if you guys see each other in the elevator very much. We're across from the legislative building. And on the other part of the street that we're across from is this massive construction site, which people just when I was coming downtown today, it's closed in front of the Museum of Natural Sciences by the massive globe for cranes and all of that. It's outside. It's the window behind me as we're sitting recording this. So does the auditor's office have you thought about that project at all, or looking at that? Or
I think it's something that we'll probably look at as the process continues. There's a lot of money, big building.
Right.
Taking my view.
Right. I will say, because I don't live downtown, when I sit at the light, leaving downtown, when they took down the administration building, I'm like, oh, look at that clear view of the Albemarle. Right. And then now it's construction.
When I first took office, I had the view of the globe.
Yeah.
And now it's gone. But, that's something that we'll have to look at.
It's a lot of taxpayer money involved.
There's a lot of taxpayer money involved, and be interesting to see what the new use of buildings that are currently being used by both community colleges, Department of Public Instruction, and the universities, how those spaces are reimagined. That's going to be interesting.
What's the next thing that you're looking at? Next big thing of the auditor's office?
Well, we're really drilling down into the North Carolina Education Lottery. We do every year the financial audit of the lottery, which showed some interesting trends and numbers. And so for the first time since 2008, the Office of State Auditor is doing a full performance audit of the North Carolina Education Lottery. So that is a big project. We're working on more DAVE Act We're not going to stop with vacancies across state government. We're looking at universities, community colleges, and other areas of state government moving forward on efficiencies. And we're doing a lot of work in the municipal space. My chief of staff here at the auditor's office, he said it in a meeting just the other day, in large respects, in some places, the only accountability measure for some parts of government is actually the Office of North Carolina State Auditor. Mm-hmm. And so we're gonna really work hard to try to leverage new computer technology to broaden our reach across state government.
You mentioned other areas. Do you want to tell us what
Helene
those are
funding? We're drilling down into the Helene funding because I think it's important that we take a look not only at how NCORE performed over the last 8 or 9, 10 years, but look at how we're doing with Helene and long-term recovery to learn from that on a bigger scale, on the macro level, so that we utilize scarce resources in the most effective way. So that endeavor will continue. And also looking at bonds. You go in and the public votes for a bond.
Right.
And there's a bond referendum, and that money gets borrowed. My sense is, in talking to people across the state, they don't really know what happens after they vote yes, for example, for a bond. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be looking at bonds across the state of North Carolina to let folks know exactly how those bond referendums in their local community, how that money's being spent, and what kind of return they're getting on that investment.
Okay, interesting. All right, before we get to Headliner of the Week, I want to touch just briefly on the Dean Dome. As we talked about, you were UNC trustee, kind of where there's a lot of people, everyone's got an opinion on it, on what should happen, where it should go. From where you're sitting now, where do you see kind of the next steps here for just both the conversation and actual demolition, construction, renovation?
Yeah, I think the Dean Smith Center obviously is a topic of interest, particularly to Carolina folks. I don't know if the people at NC State care one way or the other, frankly, but the people in Chapel Hill sure do care about it. I think the real questions are, what type of return on a building renovation or new building, whichever direction Chancellor Roberts and his team takes. How do you get a return on investment more than being net positive just 17 days a year, which is what the Smith Center is now. Even if it's used for graduation, for example, in winter, it's only used really in winter and for some school graduations, main graduations in Kenan Stadium. And for some one-off uses and basketball practice, for example, it gets used for that. But in order to be able to afford and run a building like that, you're going to have to be able to generate revenue more than just 17 home games a year. So that's a real consideration.
Are you going to the UNC Virginia Tech men's basketball game this weekend there?
I will be there.
I will be there also, which I should have made for my headliner. Go Hokies. We'll see how the game turns out, but be interesting to watch the game in that venue. All right. As we wrap up, let's go to our picks for Headliner of the Week. I'll go first. My headliner is this I hope it's real and not AI. It would appear to be surveillance video at the legislative building that Carolina Journal posted on social media of a raccoon falling from the ceiling, scurrying a little bit toward the General Assembly police and security at the front of the building, and then seeing that it was discovered running the other way. So I hope that raccoon is all right.
Me too.
And the message is, you never know who's listening to your conversation, and at the legislative building could be raccoons in the ceiling, or the way the acoustics work there, or someone on a different floor. So that's my headliner, the legislative raccoon. What's your pick for a headliner?
So I'm going to go Caden Beasley, 19-year-old from Coates, North Carolina, sled hockey Paralympian, who will be competing in Italy in the Paralympics as a North Carolina native. So he's my headliner of the week.
All right. Olympics were fun to watch for winter is kind of a jury time.
And the Paralympics have taken on this new sort of relevance. And so I think that's a really neat thing.
All right. Good for it to get more attention too. All right. That's all we've got for the News and Observer. I'm Dawn Vaughan with State Auditor Dave Boliek. Thanks for being on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And producer Kevin Keister. We will talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.